So good afternoon, everyone, and hope you've been enjoying the event. Had a bite to eat at lunch, and of course, I think people are still finishing the ends of lunch, and we hope to see more soon. So basically, I'd like to just kind of a soft kickoff in here, where give you a bit of an agenda of what's going on, but perhaps more than that, kind of really just want to speak about the event itself and the themes. So I think one of the things that we really want to focus on within this is growing as a community, growing together. And the fixed broadband program or project, as I say, when you look at it, if you think about it as children, we're one of the younger children if you compare ourselves to the like of Open RAN or OOPT. And we have a lot of growing up to do in many ways. But as we look to grow up as well, I think one of the things we can see here is that we have an elder sibling that we can follow their lead on, such as the likes of Open RAN and OOPT. And so, we are learning from the best who've been able to do a lot in the industry. And really what I'd like to kick off with is kind of one of those figures in that. And that is coming to basically introduce Atsushi Ogata, the president and CEO of IP Infusion, to give us a bit of insight into what's been going on with them, but particularly how they've been able to make the impact they have in the open and disaggregated industry space. So Atsushi, if you'll please come to stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Atsushi Ogata. I'm the president and CEO of IP Infusion. It's a pleasure to be here today because Fyuz is a pivotal event for network disaggregation, and it's a really important event for IP Infusion as well. Last year, I talked about our progress, so I'm thrilled to return and share our advancement over the past year. Let me start with a brief overview of the company. We are headquartered in Silicon Valley, with a global presence. We've grown to more than 400 employees worldwide. For nearly 25 years, we have been selling network software. Initially, our core business was selling control plane software to network equipment manufacturers. In the last few years, our primary focus is selling our network operating system tailored for white box and network disaggregation. And we also offer network management solution to seamlessly manage our systems. On this slide, you can see some of our customers. To the right, you notice traditional equipment vendors who use our technology in their products. So as I mentioned, we have been selling a control plane software to these companies for almost 25 years. So these companies have been shipping their products with our technology inside their products in the market. So our technologies and software is really proven in today's market, in today's network. In the last few years, our network operating system, or NOS business, has been the growth engine. We achieved 100% year-over-year revenue growth last year. We are adding roughly 100 customers annually. So this demonstrates, the network disaggregation is taking place today. It's not just a concept, right? We have just so many customers adopting network disaggregation today. We offer an end-to-end carrier-grade solution spanning from access, aggregation, transport, and core and data centers. With a unified network operating system, customers have the flexibility to choose the suitable platform, hardware platform, for their specific needs. We currently support more than 40 different hardware platforms from various ODM partners. And many of these partners are part of the TIP community as well. We are also actively participating in TIP community. We are particularly proud of our contributions to solutions like DCSG and Cassini. We have many customers who have deployed like DCSG and Cassini globally. I'm going to talk about these customer success stories in later slides. But we are also proud that we have received the TIP Gold badge for our network operating system. As I shared earlier, our successful global deployments continue to grow. We have many customers who are using our solution as in the broadband aggregation area. And we are excited to bring our OPT success to the fixed broadband. And some of these customers are TIP members. For example, Ceragon is our customer and partner in the TIP community that we have been working for some time now. Okay, here's a brief overview of our broadband aggregation solution. Basically, we provide aggregation switches that provide the integration, seamless integration into OLTs and BNGs. With the same NOS for various use cases, we provide the simple, consistent management interface so that the customer can simplify their operation with a single NOS. And as I said, we support more than 40 different platforms, hardware platforms today. And to meet the customer's requirements, customers can choose the hardware platform ranging from 32 gigabits to 14.4 terabits, to meet their needs. Let me share a few customer success stories. First one is WOW. They are the 8th largest cable operators in the United States. We offer our solution for their OLT aggregation. They use hardware platforms from both EdgeCore and UFI space. So they achieved significant cost reduction, but also by working with a few hardware partners, they were able to alleviate the supply chain and sourcing problems they had with the traditional vendors, current suppliers. The Broadband is another great example for the OLT aggregation. In this case, they use EdgeCore hardware, and we work with RockNet as a reseller, as a partner for this solution. And we actually had a joint webinar with Broadband recently, and recorded webinar is available on YouTube. And this is a great webinar, and highly recommend watching that recorded session on YouTube, because they talk about the tangible benefits of network disaggregation. Unity is another large service provider in the United States. Again, they work with both EdgeCore and the UFI space. And in this case, we work with EPS Global as a distribution partner. Again, they have flexibility to select the hardware to meet their needs, but we provide the single point of contact for the 24/7 support. So whether it's a software issue, hardware issue, they can contact us anytime. And we handle all the issues for the customer, including hardware, RMA, logistics, and everything. We work with these partners behind the scenes, and we provide 24/7 support for the customers. So customers get benefits for the flexibility and choice, but at the same time, they can operate in the same way that they are operating with the existing suppliers. And an interesting point of this story is, in addition to the significant cost savings, they talk about the power savings as one of their key benefits. So they compared the power needs of a solution against the current equipment they've been using from the current supplier, and they saw a significant decrease of the power needs of our solution. And as a public company, ESG is an important topic for them. And they were able to improve the ESG score significantly due to the power savings coming from our solution. In a network disaggregation, collaboration is essential. Over the years, we built a robust ecosystem. We work with more than 100 solution providers and the value-added resellers. The latest news is that we are going to announce a strategic partnership with NTT Data. I was hoping that we can make the announcement, do the press release today. It took a little bit longer, so I think it's tomorrow. I think we will have a joint panel discussion with NTT Data, and we're gonna do the announcement, press release tomorrow as well. So system integrators play a critical role, as you understand. Last year we announced a partnership with Fujitsu, or Fujitsu Network Communications, and we work with them closely for tier 1 operators, for example. In this case, NTT Group is actually one of our largest clients, and we are excited about this partnership with NTT Data as well. So as I shared, as you can see, we made a lot of progress, achieved significant milestones over the past year. Challenging, traditional established vendors is not easy, but we made a significant progress, and I'm pretty optimistic about our path forward. Network disaggregation is happening, and I believe, it will continue to grow. And I'm really looking forward to working with all of you to advance network disaggregation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Atsushi. This is one of the, these are one of the pillars and something that we as a fixed broadband group really want to look and lean into and work on. But, I can't help but ask, but looking at your breadth of technology and the scale and the number of partners you have, is there any chance we're going to see something like OCNOS on a BNG or an OLT?
Yeah, it's a very good question. But we partner with the BNG vendors, such as NetElastic. They are also part of the network. They were in the network disaggregation market. Currently, we don't have BNG on our roadmap because we are focused on the aggregation product, broadband aggregation solution, and we want to expand our leadership position with that product for now. But we partner with BNG partners for now.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just moving on onto the next group, and these are our very dear and near co-chairs of the fixed broadband program. I'd like to introduce Rafael Canto Palancar from Telefónica, and also Bruno Cornaglia from Vodafone. I think Rafa's going to speak first. So Rafa, if you would like to please come up to the stage.
So hello everyone. Pleasure to be here one year more. To introduce you with to the activities that we are doing in fixed broadband group. I'm not gonna say what is fixed broadband. You are already here, But what is important is, well, you know that you will be familiar with this slide. This is the way that we work in TIP and all the parts of the network that we are dealing with. And this group is a new group. It's quite young. And we had the feeling that there was a piece that was missing. It was fixed broadband. It's a very important part of the network for CSPs, for fixed operators. More than 80% of the traffic is going through the fixed broadband network. And also it's a market in which, so to say, offer was limited, right? So we thought that there was the space for having open and disaggregated networks there. We are focusing, important is we are focusing today in open BNGs and into open OLTs. There are potential more elements in the future, but these were the two elements which we thought that we should focus first. So important to say is how we work, on not only how we work, but who we are. So we are 8 operators with Deutsche Telekom, not in order of importance, Deutsche Telekom, BT, Telefónica, Vodafone, Orange, and TIM, and also to welcome the 2 new members, Bell Canada and Liberty Global. So what's important here is all of us, we had the view and the strategy that it's needed a new solution, an open and disaggregated solution for those networks, and we share that view in our deployments. So how we work. So first of all, you know that this tip is about collaboration. It's a collaborative approach in which there is a clear methodology in which first we ideate this the creation and the ideation of the ideas, in which we have the use cases and we plan together, we prioritize where we want to focus first. And for this, there is a deliverable, which is the use case document, in which, for example, in OpenBNG, you would have all the ways in which we use BNGs, that you know that it depends on the operator. There are many deployment models. Then we select those, and from that, then we go to the definition part, in which all together we agree on a common set of requirements, in which we are just detailing the basis on the product that we want to have, and also a detailed DTR in which we go functionality by functionality of what we want. Then we go to the build process, mainly RFIs, and bringing together with the industry, discussing a lot with them, and building the product, testing it as soon as it's ready. This testing is also collaborative, and for us the idea is to have the products in the lab as soon as they are ready and mature enough to start testing the prototypes, and to go along with the providers to build the products that we all want. And finally, you know that it's the deployment model. We are not there yet in here, but well, as soon as there is an opportunity, we would like to start with early field trials and starting to test the technology in the field. So the two parts, or the two modules, or the two functions that we are use cases that we are focusing on. First of all, Bruno will talk about the OFAN. I will talk about the OpenBNG. So OpenBNG is about disaggregating hardware and software. We want it to be really agnostic on the hardware substrate. So it's so in there the data plane could be different solutions, different hardware solutions, and we focus on the functionality that we want it to have. And on the one hand, and on the other hand, we wanted it to make it to. We were aware on our discussions of the different flavors and ways of deploying BNGs that we have as operators. So we adopted also an agnostic model, a very flexible and modular approach, in which we develop different software packages. One for just PNG, another one for routing, another one for PE, because some of the operators we deploy BNGs included in the IP hierarchy, and also other features that are also very important of disaggregation, like caps, being defined now by Broadband Forum. So, what we have done today in OpenBNG. So we discussed how we work in the group. So first of all, the use case document. We had these use case documents in which we contemplated centralized versus distributed deployments, just pure BNG as a platform versus full-blown functionality with integration in the IP hierarchy. Then we produced this technical requirements document, went to the detailed technical requirement documents. This is now, I think that is like 1,800 requirements in there, because we are covering all the plethora of solutions, of modular solutions. And today we are we already issued several batches, brown batches for solutions compliant with OpenBNG. We developed the test plan 1.0, and we are doing, as members of the group, we are doing several testing regarding the early prototypes. And for the future, where we are now and what we are gonna do. So once we started, we produced the first test plan. We also recognized that BNG is a very complex function. So we decided, okay, let's from discussing among us, we started to understand that there were more things to be tested, more things to be added, and we are in the process of completing this test plan 0 with more functionalities that, like for example, caps or AAA or things that are required to be in service, to put the BNG in service. And this also will trigger the update of the TRD and the TRD. And this is the way that we will end up this year. And now we are starting a process of the new focus of the group for the extended areas. This is something that is being discussed within the group today, and there are many areas that we will I mentioned some of them, like CAPS or AAA or HQOS, but this is something that we will need to prioritize for the future, and we will define in following weeks. And finally, for sure we will continue with the test and validation procedures, and because the objective is to take this into the market as soon as possible. And now I will pass to my colleague Bruno.
Thank you very much, Rafael. Let's move on what we call Open Fixed Access Network, in order to change a little bit from OpenBNG to OpenPLT to easy. And so we decided this name because it's enlarging the scope and so on. It's a little bit more than OpenOLT. But at the end, the solution is more or less similar to what we are doing in OpenBNG. What we want is to disaggregate hardware and software also on the OLT base. Obviously, that disaggregation in the OLT is a little bit less than BNG because we have less functions and so on. Part of the software cannot be completely disaggregated because we manage PON network, the software should reside there. But at the end, the idea is to do something similar of what we did in the OpenBNG. Obviously, that what we want is to reuse as much as possible already defined standard interface that are available in the standard bodies. That could be IATF, could be Broadband Forum, that already define a lot of this, and we are reusing these interfaces in order to create a real open solution. Obviously, that this has something that we need to apply for multiple applications. The typical one is the residential customers, because we are talking about millions of customers in this case, but we are not only covering this part. Will be also, as you will see, we will look also at the mobile backhauling, enterprise connection, advanced services, and that can use these things. That can use this technology. Why we are doing so? The idea is to create a solution that is more flexible, but also that can deliver the value or investing not everything in one shot, but to be more in a pay-as-you-go manner. That's the reason why we decided to do something like that. Because when you talk about OLT, BNG, you talk about tens or hundreds. When we talk about OLT, we are talking about 1,000 or 10,000 elements in a network. So, as you can see here, we are a little bit behind what has already been done in BNG because we started later on. We reuse what already been done by the BNG subgroup, but at the end, we are more or less following the same path. We didn't provide any use case document because we at the end analyzed that the use case is more or less one. You will see, but we published directly the technical requirement document, the version 1.0 that was already published in the summer. Then we are going to develop the detailed technical requirements, that the detailed technical requirements will include the use case for, let me say, the hardware and software disaggregation. When we talk about disaggregation, typically we are talking about hardware and software disaggregation. But here we are not only this. We are also thinking about complete hardware disaggregation. Instead of having a chassis of hundreds of ports, you can talk about small pieces, white box with, I don't know, 16, 32, or 48 ports. And then to scale up when needed. This means hardware disaggregation, but also software disaggregation. Because when you talk about software, we also need to think a little bit in future how we want to have. And we need to modularize the software in order to create an environment where you have a small piece of software that will help us in the future to be more flexible and faster. We expect to approve the tail TRD in probably in November. We are at a good stage. We have some revision to be done. Where there are multiple operators working together, there are still different views, and we need to merge all together. But I think that we are at a good stage, in November we should approve. And then we will start the RFI process, as has been done for the OpenBNG. We will deliver, most likely, the results will be analyzed to finalize in the first quarter of 24, and then we will start the test plan that we need to prepare in the meantime. After that, we will produce the report of the test plan, and probably we will start the issue 2, because as you know, every time that you do something, you discover that you can do better, and you start again, and you improve, as OpenBNG is doing. Okay, that's for everything from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rafa and Bruno. And Bruno, I see you're right ahead of me. I mean, I think you have more to say, a little bit about the OLT, do you think? And I think, yeah, you're right and seated, and I'm happy you're comfortable there. Okay, thank you. So moving on, and we're going to our next session where, and I'm going to basically introduce first Daniel Cortés from Telefónica. Daniel, could you please come up? And basically, just to give an overview, is that we've got two work streams on the go. OLT is a lot, you know, the younger sibling in this sense, if I can keep on that theme. And essentially, basically, well, the world's not going to stop, is it? Like, the world's going to keep going. We're doing our work. We're doing, you know, a lot of work behind the scenes in order to get out the requirements that we need. But you're still going to have to build those networks. Even though the bandwidth has slowed, it's still quite, you know, very large. And obviously, as Bruno also mentioned, is that there is a huge amount of quantity in terms of the devices you have to do here. So really, what we want to look at is that, well, okay, so a lot of what we've spoken about is in the realm of residential, right? And Bruno mentioned it as well, is that a lot of the use cases here are also, well, what about enterprise? What about mobile? And I think it's probably good to kind of maybe come back to this and say, while we're doing all this work, and we really value it and want to get it out, well, what have the operators been doing in the meantime? And so, you know, right now I'd like to bring up Daniel in order to have a chat about what Telefónica have been up to.
Thank you, Hanson. Sorry. Hello, everyone. Well, first of all, I would like to give you a very quick context of what Telefónica is doing and have been doing for the several last years in FTTH deployment. As you can see, we have right now covered more than 78 million home passed and more than 15 million home customers. What does this mean? That we have already a very mature FTTH deployment, and we have a huge existing plant of current OLTs already deployed. All of them are based on GPON technology. Nowadays, we are planning to make our upgrade to XGS-PON. But of course, in all these new development, new architecture and new solutions, we need to take into account the current and existing plant that we see that it is massive. The problem for this are two main, as you can see, that today our ecosystem is very limited. We have several partners in our plant, but it is not enough for us. We want to open the ecosystem and to enhance our map of vendors to have several different alternatives to work with. And the other problem with the existing plant is that all the solutions are monolithic. Everything is controlled by the supplier, from the EMS to the OLTs, and even in some cases, the ONT, which must be attached to the same OLT provider. On the right-hand side, you can see a very simple summary of the fixed access architecture that we have in Telefónica. We have our OSS, BSS, and we need a dedicated interface to each of our EMS of our vendors. We can have, EMS A, B, or C, but for every of them, we need our specific interface from our systems with all the development that it involves. This EMS, as we said before, it is tightly enclosed with a closed interface through the same vendor, of course. And again, the OLT is a black box. The hardware and the software are very coupled together. We cannot take functions, software developments, or whatever inside of that. Everything is controlled by the vendor. And on the positive side, in Telefónica, as you can see, we have introduced our own home gateway equipment, opening the OMCI interface. So at least the customer premises and the customer part is already open. So we do not need to rely on or deploy the OLT plus ONT configuration from each of the vendors. So that opens a lot our ecosystem and our deployments. So although we have introduced this Telefónica ecosystem, this is not enough for the new services and the new environment that we are going to face, because we need to introduce the programmability on the fixed access. All the new services that we are going to develop and that we are envisioning for the short, the medium, and even in the long term, 2030 and so on, requires that we have the programmability and the capacity to give the access to expose the network functions and to grow not in that limited way that we have right now. So from the previous current architecture that we have seen, what we are envisioning is our new open broadband architecture, where we will have, again, the same, of course, new and evolutive OSS and BSS systems. But the first change right here with previous architecture is that we are going to introduce an SDN controller, a multi-vendor SDN controller that will have open interface to our Telefónica systems. This is two very important changes because, first of all, we get rid of specific interfaces for each of the EMS. Now it will be only one between our OSS and the controller of the fixed access. And one more thing that it is also very important is this ecosystem is going to be multi-vendor. So from this SDN, we are going to control, as you can see on the right, the whole set of OLTs that we have currently in our plant and every new OLT that we start deploying for our field. The first two, as you can see, are still the current ones, black boxes, no disaggregation. But we are going to be able to introduce the new LTs that we are developing also under the TIP scope with the hardware and software disaggregated, as Bruno have said. Centering or focusing on the benefits of these OLTs, well, first of all, the disaggregation of the hardware and the software give us the possibility to work with different vendors for each of the parts. So we are not tightly coupled to just vendor for one just thing as we have right now. This will make, of course, enhance our vendor ecosystem and obviously increase the competition since it's an open environment. It will be open for new proposals, new suppliers, new software developers, whoever wants to work with this model. This as well is going to widen our supply chain alternatives due to different component source from the traditional vendors to these new ones. So in the context that we are facing, maybe not so hard in right now, but in the past years, the supply chain has been very hard for us, and we have faced a lot of problems. And one of the key points of this is to introduce, as I was mentioning before, the network programmability with the open interfaces. These new LTs are going to have, or are already having, an x86 server within the equipment. So this will have the possibility to make this work as a server, as a computer. We can run functions inside. We can run software functions for the network within this box, or we can take it, or we can take it away for central offices, edge sites. But this gives us the possibility to do so. This is the enabler that make us decide where we can put this software function for the network, but also for our customers and new services that we want to deploy. And with this new ecosystem and with this idea of developing new services and this flexibility, of course, we also want to boost innovation within our partners, within our organization, and also within TIP. As we said before, and Bruno mentioned, we are doing a lot of work already under TIP scope with the use case document, the technical requirements document, and now with the detailed technical requirement document that is in progress, and later with the RFIs. And the other key part of this new architecture, of course, as I mentioned before, is the SDN controller. We come from a situation as is architecture, where, as we said before, we have the OSS, proprietary NVI interfaces to the EMS, and each of that with proprietary interfaces to our legacy OLTs or the current existing plant. We can not really do too much about it, but this is where the multi-vendor SDN controller gets into place. We will be having several ways of integrating those current existing OLTs in the new model, because of course we cannot replace all our whole equipment from the field. From one side, there will be some very old legacy OLTs which are not going to be able to work with Netcom Young, so we will need a legacy adapter from the current vendor suppliers that we will integrate with the multi-vendor SDN controller. Later we have like a new set of OLTs that can be native Netcom Young or non-native Netcom Young. In those cases, we will need a broadband forum adapter, which is already defined, and will make the translation of those OLTs to the TR413 that is Netcom Young, and will make the functions for the SDN controller. So whenever going a higher level, whenever we are going to introduce a new service, we are going to introduce a new system integration, we are going to do whatever, the SDN controller is going to make the abstraction layer. So all the OLTs, legacy, new, based on the disaggregation or not, are going to be abstracted. So our systems are not going to make services different for each OLT. So for every of the services are going to work with all the OLTs, no matter which kind of it. So the benefits of this, one of clear benefit, this is going to be, the SDN controller is going to be the single point of contact for our systems, for our OLTs, and it's going to enable this programmability. It's going to, all the flows are going directly through this SDN controller and going down to develop these new network use cases. We are thinking about network as a service. We are thinking about APIs for exposure, our network capabilities that nowadays is totally impossible. We are also working with the Open Gateway program within Telefónica and in the industry that is well known, where we want to expose these functions. And later, many features for slicing or automation that can improve either our customer experience, or the developing of new services. We will simplify system integration. we will coexist with our legacy network and legacy services, as you can see. And of course, we will remove every proprietary network implementation. However, this part, it is not yet under TIP scope, and this is one of the things that I would like to work on TIP and with the industry, because we feel this element, although some of the specifications are already on Broadband Forum, as you might know, there's still many things to do that we can develop. So finalizing, there's still a lot of work to do, as you can imagine. All the work within the fixed broadband group with the technical documents, the RFIs, and so on. We also want to develop some first common requirements for this SDN controller, because we feel this is not just a problem of Telefónica, it's going to be a problem for all the operators and even for all the vendors. They don't need to make every new development or different integration for each of the operators that cannot be managed. So having this same ecosystem for everyone, I think is going to be helpful for everyone. Whenever we have this SDN controller, of course, we need to develop, we need to test it, and we need to make all the integrations, especially with the legacy part, which is going to be hard, but we will manage. And take advantage of this new system, because we will introduce these programmability use cases that today would be impossible with the current architecture. So we need to take the most out of the new assets that we are going to deploy. And from my side, it's everything, so I give the floor to Bruno.
Thank you, Daniel. See, we are obviously already a good description from Telefónica, but we need to add something more on this. On top of that, can we do something more? And why we need to do something more? Sincerely speaking, as Vodafone, I have a dream. I have a dream that every time that I need to deploy a new software release, I don't have to spend months in testing, accepting, and then months in rollout. I have a dream that all the time that I need to implement a new service or I need a new network function, it doesn't require months to discuss with vendors the applicability, and then the roadmap and all this stuff. Finally, I have another big dream, that to have, let me say, wholesale services that is more advanced, where retail operator can have something more than today, and to be more flexible in deploying its own services, its own network applications. Can we do so? That's not easy, but we are moving in such a direction. With the disaggregation, we can have a common infrastructure, and then we can put on top of that multiple functions that at the beginning, as mentioned by Daniel, can be from the vendor itself because it's difficult. But then later on, you can have something more, and you can think to enlarge the scope. Obviously, that you will start with the vendor app. For sure, you will have the application developed by the vendor itself that you can put on top. But on the other side, you can have other network apps that can be developed by third party that you are using for other applications, for monitoring, for example, or for other stuff. Then you can develop your own operator app on top that can be for developing the functions that you want to deploy. And finally, you can have the service app that is really the scope that you have in order to have an end-to-end solution to be delivered to your customers. And if at the end you have an open system where you can deploy any third-party app that you want to deploy. That's the idea when you move into the disaggregation. What are the values that you can have? And then probably if you have these type of things, you can always reduce the time in testing, reduce the time in deployment, reduce the time in developing new functions, new services. As I said, we can reach so if we change the idea that we have today of monolithic system where you have your hardware and your software on top. But where you can divide the software into multiple functions, the user plane functions, the control plane function, and the management plane function. And on top of that, you can put inside the system can be, or in future can be in external service, that doesn't matter. But it's the fact that on top of infrastructure agnostic that you have at the bottom, you can create modular components. And when you have modular components, this means that all the time that you have to change, to upgrade, you need only to look at this modular component. You don't need to do the test of the entire system with regression tests that require months and months of work. Obviously, that if you have modular functions, it will be easier to add new module. Can be easy to swap modules that are not working according to your needs or because they are old and you need a new one completely rebuilt. And your service at the end is easily to be developed because it's only a combination of multiple functions that you need to concatenate each other in order to develop, deploy, and deliver services to your net customer. With this solution, you can reach a lot of values. First of all, obviously, that if you develop this type of solution, you base your architecture on microservices. Will be easy, it's already defined, this is the standard de facto. You can use Kubernetes, for example, and you have the architecture based on microservices. If you use microservices, you can have a process based on DevOps, on CI/CD concept, continuous improvement, continuous development, deployment. Organization needs to be changed. This is the big question that we have at the moment, because there are a big impact on that. But if you start to develop the other two, probably you can also manage the third one. And you can reach a lot of value, you can see here. Scale. You can add new functions, only a number of customers will increase. You need no modules because you have more customers, you add new modules. But this is not only the advantage of scalability. If you have small modules, you can also have resilience. Easy to move customer from one module to another if you have some problems. Speed. If you have small modules, then you can have isolation. And each module is autonomous. You can swap, you can upgrade, you can do everything on this module. At the end, obviously that all these goals, you can go and to have agility. You are flexible. You do it in implementing the network, you do it in the network. And also, it's easy to do experiment. You can do part of the network, small part of the network, deploy your software component, your module, to test how they work, a new service, new application, new network monitor, whatsoever. And then you can, at the end, test and see it works to extend to the entire network. Now, this is something that if you have this part, you can reach also this goal. What I mentioned before, I have a big dream, advanced wholesale services. In order to have for the retail operators to be able to manage better the network. The concept of the SDN controller will help, as introduced by Daniel, will help to do so. On the top, you can have multiple OLTs, disaggregated OLT, for example, for different vendors, managed by the SDN controller. Each operator will interface towards standard APIs that TM Forum is going to develop and to specify. Just at the beginning, so you don't think to find anything, just started a few months ago. So it's really new. And then you can have multiple functions in a cloud, for example, just to give you an example. You can have the infrastructure functions directly badged by the wholesaler, or network functions that can be of the wholesaler of the retail operator. You can have monitoring functions that can help to have more information for the retail things. And then you can have on top operator functions. If you have functions directly developed with a standard interface toward the network, the operator can develop and deploy new services based on their needs, and to be more and more flexible. Big dream, I don't know, we will reach this probably not in a short time, that's for sure. This is a lot of steps to be done. You need to start with the disaggregation. You have the white box, you have the software disaggregated by the hardware. You can move then probably into the cloud, when you have to the cloud, you can also think something like that. But it's something to look at for the future and to have a vision. Let me say thank you very much for your attention. I hope that it was really interesting, and I will leave the floor to...
Well, thank you, Bruno, and thank you, Daniel. I mean, Bruno, I promise I'll let you go after this. There's no need to, I mean, I'd love to be on the stage, but no, I promise so. And I guess, I just want to ask one question to both of you, well, individual question as well. So Daniel, I'm really happy you brought up the controller. We very much focused on the white box and what, let's say the forwarding plane is doing, but as we said, this is a large number. We need to be able to manage it somehow. And you talked about the success of the ecosystem. And I'm wondering, so what do you see as the key points of really making this a success through your approach with Telefónica?
Well, as you have seen, we have two main pillars for this new solution and the new open broadband architecture. Of course, we have the OLT with the disaggregation and the software separated for the OLT to make this work. But also we need this SDN controller on top to manage this, to introduce automation, to introduce new services, and to develop the new capabilities of this network. From this point of view, I think that we can take advantage of all the work that Broadband Forum has done already before. But to have a very quick example, we have tested in our labs 2 different vendors compliant with Broadband Forum, but in the end, later, it is not interoperable. There are still some integration to do, some fine-tuning, and so on. And we need some implementation reference models that allows this to reduce the effort. And I think no one really is working on this in the industry today, and I think TIP would be a very nice point of work to develop that.
Thank you, and we're definitely going to be talking about that, by the way. And Bruno, to your dream, which I'm very much in favor for, in order to help realize that, and as well, I'm just looking at what Daniel said and what you mentioned as well in some elements, is that as someone who's very active within TIP and also very active within the Broadband Forum, how do you think we can work together to make sure your dream comes true?
Thank you for this question. I think that this question is really important, because if we want to reach our dream, we need to work together. We need to have this dream in our mind, and then we need to work together in order to reach this goal and to have this. I think that we need to work together first of all, in the specification of the interfaces. Without the interface specification, it's impossible to have an open system. And that's something that is not a matter only of operators to develop this type of interfaces, to specify this type of interfaces. It's a matter of all the industry. Operators for sure, because they want to have an open system, to be change vendors if needed, to be open to add a new vendor and so on. But it's also in the matter of the vendors do this so, because if you want to enter in this business, you need to collaborate, to cooperate with other vendors. And that if you have a reference standard for the interface among all the components, it's easier for them to enter and so on. Third, also system integrators. Sometimes we forget this type of thing, but system integrators that put all the components together will do everything, need to have a reference, not only in the testing, but also the reference in how they must to do, because you have all the interfaces specified. And so we need to collaborate all together in order to reach these goals. Cannot be done only by few people or few things together, because at the end, the specification will be too slow with respect to the needs of the operators, because this is the risk that you have when you have to specify everything. That if you don't have sufficient resources, at the end the specification is always behind the need of the operators, the need of the customers of the operator. You need to work all together.
Thank you very much, both of you. So we just got a bit of furniture to rearrange as we move on to our next and last session. So in terms of questions, what I'd like to ask is that if you please approach us at the end of the session. I think we're more than happy to answer anything of all these sessions. To the gentleman over there, please look out for me or any of the group. We're happy to address them there. So our final topic for the day kind of goes and looks at what is our, I guess you could call it our big brother or our big sister. And we're taking it in a similar vein as to where we took with the OFAN group, or in this case, the OLTs. And again, it's the same theme. Like, yes, we're developing this, we're doing all this testing and all of that, but the world, time doesn't stop. You still have to keep the networks alive, and you have to keep evolving in order to meet those services needs. So essentially what I'd like to do here is we do have a panel session. And what I'd like to do is invite all of our panelists to the stage and then take a seat and get comfortable. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Paul Gunning from British Telecom. Following him is Francisco de Carvalho from Radisys. We have Hans Gredler from RtBrick. And last but not least, we have Mario Kind from Deutsche Telekom. So in the essence of just like how we talked about OLTs, you know, so many different ways to deploy, so many different methods, the same thing was in BNG, right? Started with a pretty big monolithic box, you know, very feature-rich, pretty capacity, you know, can do a lot of, can basically drive a lot of packets, high capacity, high density and such. And well, you know, as technology has gone on the by, and also a kind of a need to distribute and kind of collapse some of those failure domains, particularly redundancy scenarios, DR scenarios. What we find is that, you know, you have a lot more options in terms of where you deploy, or what you deploy and when you deploy, in terms of equipment size, obviously location and such. And this is further compounded by the fact that, well, you know, it's not just a big monolithic router anymore. You know, you can have options where it's a lot smaller. It's also potentially a virtual BNG, and other things such as more recently cups, right? So there's a lot to unpack here. And while we speak a lot about, we've spoken a lot about what those dreams can do, maybe in a further story in here is that, well, what actually is going on as you know, at least in the realm of the open and disaggregated space. So thank you all for being here today, and you know, I would like to join you. And I guess maybe just to kick us off, and I think it may be a coincidence that all of you are sitting in the same line as what the photos are. So I think we'll just go with that along the line. So just to start, Mario, what's been going on? What's Deutsche Telekom been up to?
First of all, thanks for for inviting me here. So what are we doing at DT? Several things. So one of the important things in our home market in Germany is that the Access 4.0 project is still ongoing. For those who are not really familiar with this one, it's the complete transition of an BNG into an open disaggregated architecture in a FiBr style. Here we are at the process of a second field trial now. The last one, most probably, before we really deploy it and start migrating all our customers from legacy to the new disaggregated platform. Beyond that, also in other of our networks, the disaggregated solution are picked up. So actually there's an RFQ running in some of our national markets further in Southeast Europe. And if I look around here, I think some of the vendors are also involved there. So that's one thing going on. And last but not least, for sure, this year, the Open BNG group. We are working here, trying to get the test plan updated. So version 1 is version 1, but we want to bring this forward.
Awesome, Mario. Hannes.
Well, initially, in the past years, with our lead customer, Deutsche Telekom, we have been working just on a basic fiber to the home BNG service. So that mandate and that ask has now extended. There is now ask for including additional services on top of the BNG platform. That includes layer 2 circuit aggregation and circuit termination skills, L3 VPN, so basically the whole business services portfolio. What we actually see in other markets as well is there is a trend to increase the service density on that platform formerly known as BNG, so it really becomes a multi-service edge. On the hardware side, we also see not just disaggregated deployments, we see what we call DDBNG, distributed disaggregated deployments, so mostly driven by 300 millimeter platforms, chipsets like Broadcom's Q2A, who can actually drive that. So service termination capability is moving more towards the edge. On the chipset side, we also see the next notch on the speed dial. Our silicon partners are making now the change to 7 nanometer production process. We see 7.2 terabit systems, chips available where you can actually build pretty decent BNGs with nice throughput figures. So that's happening here a bit on the software side, on the hardware side. On the software side, we actually see now operators are, I would say the cozy days are over. There is now the exactly same test plans that we have to go through with the legacy vendors. So speed, convergence, downloading full routing tables in 30 seconds, all those things, scale, pumping up 60,000 subscribers, all those things we see now as well. And of course, security, right? There is now the security hats knocking on our door. There is regular security audits, basically all those features and functionality to prevent malware onto critical infrastructure. We all see that now as well. So that was a little bit of a longer answer on what keeps us busy.
And that's a lot. And, I think maybe we'll come back to some of that there. And, I think, Francisco, you probably have you have more breadth to add than what we've already heard already.
Yeah, so for us, we've been over the last few years developing our portfolio of products. So we have the full range from CPE to OLTs. We also have a management and control plane that is fully disaggregated. By default, the Radisys products, both on the fixed and on the O-RAN side, are disaggregated. So it's not our solution is a cloud platform of the past, but you have to use our cloud. It's very much our solution is a software or a software house. We have hardware products, but you should be free to choose. So that's point number one. And we also have a management and control plane solution that is built on the blocks from Access 4.0. We've been working with our partner. DT has chosen us to be that prime integrator, the person that takes control of the hardening, takes control of the scalability, and takes control of the implementation plans. So we've done that now. We're ready. You heard Mario say that we have the deployment plans in place. We've scaled the organization, and we're basically executing now. So we're at the final stages of proving the processes, the procedures, and everything that would run to replicate it and move it to scale in Germany. The controller itself actually holds the interfaces to the BNG, which is a strategic solution. That BNG can run on dedicated hardware, but in the DT solution, it runs on a leaf-spine fabric. Again, you can choose whoever's hardware. Our controller manages that, and it also has interfaces. So we're ready to go with that solution. Standards is the other activity that we have been investing in. So from a standards point of view, it's both about being compliant, putting contributions into the relevant bodies, and last but not least, it's also about making the organization grow. The moment is here. We've seen a number of RFQs in Europe in particular, but we're also going as far afield as Australia and the USA. So we stand ready to hopefully replicate what is now a hardened solution from Access 4.0.
And, well, thank you. And also maybe some things to come back to following up. And finally, Paul.
Yeah, well, I suppose most of my work over the last year has been looking at our disaggregated platform that's in our lab. It's multi-vendor, it has different software and noses as well. And it's really now doing the spade work from taking it from, if you like, testing and kicking the tires in the lab to getting it into sort of, I will call it a friendly trial and an exchange. So there's a lot of administrative tasks that are involved in that. I would say another thing is we are looking for very small little opportunities where we can basically slip in some of the functionality of the BNG. So for example, tunnel termination, LNS sort of functionality, that's becoming important. There's also our supply chain and how that now views what was once a monolithic box from one vendor to being a series of, hardware, operating system, plus network operating system on top of that, like applications, how they will deal and manage with that. The other thing that's on my mind more recently is the Telecom Security Act 2024 in the UK, which is requiring all telcos to adhere to certain secure by design principles. So for example, to that end, I've engaged with Hannes, and Hannes and I have been doing a little bit of work, quietly to try and, harden the solution. I think they're the main.
And so, what we're hearing it's basically a smorgasbord, right, of activities that's going on. And obviously it's going to continue more. But, Mario, I want to ask you first, and then Paul, I want to come to you. So is there one kind of key theme that kind of encapsulates all of this in terms of, what did we hear here? We heard layer 2, layer 3, then suddenly there's a new acronym, DD, BNG, and other elements in here. But, is there something that's underpinning all of this in terms of, well, a lot of this is technology, but is that the only story?
Yeah, exactly. That's an interesting question. So it's maybe not one big thing to name here. The technology things you said already. It's, OSS integration, end-to-end testing, all the things that you need to done, but non-technical is important as well. So especially convincing the company to do it. So Access 4.0 is really groundbreaking in that. It had also to convince a lot of people in the company that disaggregation is the right way. That especially how to organize it from a commercial perspective, but have different layers of elements which are not always come as one big block that is pre-integrated. You can have a certain assurance that it's work. So this is really one of the most important things that I think we have done in the company. And once Access 4.0 was fine, you have to convince all the Ethernet that we or all our national networks as well again. So it's some kind of repetition, but it's that convince the company there is a way disaggregation works. You get what you want and it fulfills your requirements. And on the other side, also commercial processes are fine to do in a way that it works for us.
Thank you very much, Mario. Paul, do you agree?
I agree. I concur with everything Mario says. There is some, I suppose, friction within, say, companies like BT, like a willingness maybe to look at new ways of doing things. But I think that's slowly changing. If I look at other, if you like, headwinds again, I'll have to go to supply chain, whereupon they're pushing back and saying, well, this seems to be becoming really difficult to manage now. You've got multiple different components. How are we actually going to get our head around that? And one way of maybe I would use to address it is, well, it's not very different to how we manage our server estate at the moment. We have a hardware from, say, a Dell or a HP. We have an operating system from Ubuntu, from Canonical and all that. And then we have a series of applications. And it's just really changing, I suppose, a mindset. The other thing that's a problem is people. Our network was populated by, the high priesthood of CCIEs. And now I suppose we're moving from CCIEs to CI/CD. And it's more, I suppose, automation. People with perhaps lesser depth of skill, but more software focused and things like that. But then that comes with benefits that there are independent cycles for the hardware refresh, independent cycles for the operating system refresh, and of course a choice of network operating system vendors that can be refreshed. So CapEx and OpEx.
CCIE to CICD. It's quite a moniker there.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, coming to Hannes, and we'll go to you after, Francisco. I'm sure you haven't heard, this is not the first time, this isn't the 50th time you've heard this. So, what do you have to say on this topic?
Yeah, all of that is true. Let me actually say that it took some time to really figure out how to distribute roles and responsibilities between the network operator, between the system integrator, and a particular software vendor, right? So a lot of the processes, a lot of the things that previously network operators did orchestrate themselves now have to get distributed as well. That is, I would say, one area of things that need to be worked on. Number two is also here a little bit the support and hardware ecosystem, right? So technically, the system integrator is responsible for pretty much everything. But then now you have all sort of interesting questions. What happens if we want to add that obscure optics because procurement has figured out there is just a decent price level for that, right? Again, finding here a process, how to make it support in the test environment, how to make the software support it, that is all work. We thought initially the problem was so much getting just the technology to work, but that is just the beginning, right? The true hard task is really fixing the organization, redesigning processes, governance principles, all those things.
Got you big time. And Francisco, what's to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything has been said before. Disaggregation is not just the technology, right? It's also the culture, it's also the skill set and where you distribute that. As a systems integrator, we need to be ready to stand, to hold the hand, move away from the vertical solutions where you had one throat to choke, and you're now moving to a world where actually you have one main hand to shake, several other hands to shake. So we're prepared to do that and stand up and be counted, but we also need support from all of the other partners to be able to do. If you do a handshake, you're taking the responsibility. So you deliver what you do, you say you're going to do that, and we're very happy to say that the milestones that we're delivering for Deutsche Telekom are on time. We still have the challenge to be able to replicate that several times, so that's one of the issues that we're facing. And so when a roadmap item appears, it sticks, and it gets delivered. The other side that we found in our experience is standards. They're great. They leave a lot of interpretation in some cases. And we found very early the automation interoperability is the case. So we've invested heavily in being able to do that automation capability so that it sets us in repeatable domain to be able to escalate and to be able to replicate that. So those are the two main points that I would bring out.
And those are really, I think they're really important. But I guess one thing is that we're here, we're talking all about this. Okay, these are the challenges. But, we've heard just from your previous answers that there's been some collaboration work between RtBrick, Radisys, DT. Do we have any examples? Mario?
Sure, I think so. First of all, I hope we didn't shake your throat too heavy. I much more like to shake more hands. That's exactly, we call it internally hyper collaboration. That we have in this disaggregated model. I hope I'm right. I hope the access for the zero guys don't kill me. But I think it's 8 partners which deliver certain pieces of a whole solution. Oh, Hannes is nodding. Good. Okay, I'm safe with my throat. The 8 partners all have to work together. So it's finally with end-to-end integration, but it's also hardware and software bringing together for the BNG, on the OLT side, the same thing from our control management framework. The hardware is a piece, and always has to work together. So what could be a good example? Maybe as we're here in OpenBNG, maybe one of these new fantastic tools is maybe a good example, the BNG Blaster. It's surprisingly invented by RtBrick, or developed by RtBrick.
And funded by Deutsche Telekom.
Okay, and that's one tool that everybody uses. We can just configure it, run our tests, and if we discover something, we can just hand it over to the next one. So in contrast to our traditional way, where we have big fat testing machines which is hard that everybody gets some, it's hard to share them. This was one of the ways how different parties can really verify pieces of the development process in more or less in real time and repeat it quite fast and also integrate it into the automation processes.
So I think, well, I mean, Hannes, and then on to you, Francisco, maybe just a bit of a quick fire response. You know, what do you have anything to add to what Mario said about this hyper collaboration?
Since this whole development of a solution problem becomes now more distributed, a critical part that management needs to address is to have all the parties look at the problem with the same set of eyes, with the same viewpoint. And BNG Blaster, in a certain way, just does that. We have literally now kind of follow the sun support, right, where let's say Bangalore labs of Radisys discovers something, rotates here the configuration of the BNG Blaster, and within seconds we can replicate that in pretty much every lab in-house. So that actually was a huge time saver for us to validate jointly a solution. Of course, there is standard solutions, there is FiBr and Ixia and what's not, but the problem is those things are not really flexible, right? You cannot really just say, hey, look, load this configuration, and then you can immediately see that problem in stream number 47, right? And that, again, was a huge time saver for us and made that whole wheel of hyper collaboration to spin just much more faster.
Thank you. Francisco.
Yeah, just to add, you asked for some examples. I'm going to give you a few, but not focus too much details on them. Those of us that are old enough who recognize the cloud, you can have our software in the cloud as long as it's our cloud. And so what we must avoid is you can have our software in any hardware as long as it's our hardware. But I'll give you an example that's concrete, that is happening right now, and it's working. Anybody can get a white box OLT, install, customize, do whatever they want with the Volta open source software, and plug it into the Access 4.0 orchestration, management, and automated testing, and it will work. It's as simple as that. And I'm not making it up because I've seen it. There's several suppliers that provide that capability already. But there's one thing that we haven't talked about really, and that's about moving from the journey of innovation to creating a solution, which we have created a solution, and turning that into a product. So to practice what I preach, Radisys has created the Connect modular broadband product. It's going on a global launch very soon. And that, because of all the investment, the automation, the carrier grade that we've done. So you've got to have all of those elements in place. You know, be honest with yourself. If it's software, it runs on anything.
A good answer, a very good answer there, and I think we're excited to have a look at the connector product there. And you know, coming to you, Paul, last and deliberately, is that, well, you know, we've heard a little bit about what this you know, collaboration is between our other speakers here. Do you think this is something that could work for BT?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I take great comfort now from just this display here of, you know, I suppose consensus amongst the system integrator, amongst the network operating system vendor, and amongst, you know, DT themselves, and bringing in the OpenBNG and bringing it to fruition. I think not only, you know, could BT benefit from that, but I also look wider within, you know, TIP, within Vodafone, Telefónica, ourselves, DT, of course, Bell Canada, that we also will be the beneficiaries of the hard work that these three have been putting into it. I think there is, you know, probably some misgiving in the fact that when you remove the main monolithic vendor, all those opaque processes that we never see are now being exposed. So there's a system integration department probably in the big vendors, there's the network operating system, the software stacks and all that, all hidden from view. That's now being exposed. And now there's lots of, I suppose the interrelationships, the relationships, Mario, Fabian, Hannes, and the team at Radisys as well. You've been working for 4 or 5 years on this.
Thank you for that. And I think we have a final question here, and I think, and mentioned by Bruno previously as well, is that we can't do this in isolation, right? Whether it's going to be introduction of new technology, whether it's a system of how you can get a product and the learnings, and obviously get that out into the industry. But probably through what we are here as the TIP fixed broadband group. So what do you think for things such as whether it's CUPS or I've heard acronyms I've heard before, but like DDBNG and other elements like that. So what do you think that some value that can be brought by the likes of our group in order to ensure that whatever gets defined, be it the broadband forum, elsewhere, becomes those products that are basically in the production networks and giving you that level of service and everything else that that you're expecting. So I want to start with Mario, and then we'll go to you, Paul, after that.
Oh, maybe before I get to the technical answer, what BBF could be. It's one of the important things that you said. It's what Bruno mentioned, but also what Rafael mentioned in the presentation. That was one of the foundation why we created, or one of the big reasons we created OpenBNG was exactly to come to the thing that Fran mentioned. That we wanted to have simpler testing, not testing each and every piece again and again and again. And every operator, why not just do it once and do it? We are still very in the process and reaching that, but it's one of these important things that we, as this OpenBNG community, try to achieve. So if you ask me about the specific BBF topic, which is also funny because the interim meeting of BBF is running at the moment a couple of 100 miles north of here in London. Beside CUPS, I think the most important thing that's going to change the broadband architectures in near future, and that's my bet, is subscriber session steering with all the pieces, how we treat customers and move them from their access towards the service edge, which really provides them a service in a most decent way. But CUPS will be important as well, but my bet would be SSA is a bit more important.
Yeah, just a bit. Paul.
Yeah, well, I'd like to call it, you were talking about SDOs and things like that. I would see, the work done by the OCP, Open Compute Platform, in terms of specifications, the ONF in terms of services, and the BBF in terms of TR459 and defining, CUPS and bringing it to fruition. That's been absolutely critical. But I also want to give a shout out, not only the holy trinity of those three, but also, if you like, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, where we take those 3 plus ourselves and TIP, whereby TIP is providing, the means to start from the basics of user cases, take it from user cases onto technical requirement documents, writing test cases, then doing lab validation, and then ultimately awarding, badges to the vendors to provide some sort of assurance to the community as a whole. So that whole consensus or coalition, of good, I think is really critical to the whole endeavors that we're here today for.
Thank you. And I'd like to move to you, Francisco, and Hannes will finish us off. But,
Yeah, so a good way of changing things is disruption. But what you can't have for too long is it's disparity. It's the breaking down of multiple organizations to address the same requirements. And I think from a standards point of view, which is the more traditional way of defining requirements, the Broadband Forum stands ready to define, to engage with the service providers and be service provider-led. We understand, so I sit on the board of directors for the Broadband Forum, but we understand that open source exists, and open source is a good thing. And on the other side, I have a double hat. I sit on the ONF as well. So the open source people, teams, understand that standards are required. So accelerate things through organizations such as the ONF, TIP, O-RAN Alliance. Make sure that where the standard and the protocols of de facto quality exist, you reuse. make sure that you actually feed that back to those organizations, and then at some point, which is what's happening now between the Broadband Forum and the ONF, we're in liaison statement. We're basically saying, trying to get the best of both worlds to accelerate that position. And I think TIP, Broadband Forum, there's a conversation to be had to actually foster the best of both. And we're making it work in one aspect, but it's a bigger problem to crack.
Definitely a conversation to have, and we also have some of the relevant people, I believe, who can help us to kick that off. And last but not least, Hannes.
Well, I do not really want to spoil the party here, but one of the things that I particularly liked about other standardizations groups, like the IETF, was always this comment of, hey, let's basically feedback the experience from running code back into the specification and have several turnarounds here and several cycles. And to me, sometimes BBF is, I would say, a little bit on the theoretical edge, right? How should I say that without not offending too many people here? But I'm here really a network practitioner. I would really encourage to listen more of the operational experience and let that also drive more the standardization process.
Thank you very much, Hannes. And well, that's the end of our session. And perhaps just to kind of close this is that we are yes, kind of the youngest child of TIP. And as mentioned at the start, we have a lot of growing up to do. We have a lot of role models, but we also understand that we're not going to get anywhere unless we're in this together. And in order to do this together, that's joining between the operator, the supplier, the systems integrator, and by extension, of course, as was mentioned in many talks today, is of course, the SDOs, the likes of BBF and ONF and OCP. So with that said, I would like to just invite everybody to stand up and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.